So I ended up paying, $1,200 for the inspection, ended up not doing the deal. Not because they didn't come out on the price, but when I started to go through more of the due diligence and asking them for lease renewals and rent roll, right, which is a ledger of all the rents and have they been paid. Asked them for a T12, which is a income and expense sheet that they weren't able to produce. Now, oftentimes, people may not be astute.
That's what I was
clerically,
gonna say. Yeah,
right?
If they just not, maybe they just don't have the.
Maybe, but you ain't got rent roll or T12, and the leases that you got all were signed in the last 30 days.
Okay, yeah.
For me, you know what I'm saying?
They say that's a red flag.
That would be a red flag.
Why is them having leases only on 30 days a red flag?
So here's the deal. They wanted top dollar for this building, okay? And like I got 100 plus units, so I kind of know what the rents are in this area, in all areas around Detroit. Their rents were some of the best I've ever seen with respect to Section 8 vouchers.
Right.
So the fact that they were asking top dollar, the fact that these rents were unbelievably higher than all the rest of the rents that I see, and then the fact that all of the leases were signed within 30 days, and they didn't have any record of deposits and rent rolls and income and expenses, it was just a huge red flag to me.
Yeah.
And especially when I looked at because I just so happened to be in town, I was like, I'm gonna drive by the location, just go see it right before Thanksgiving. It made this look like the suburbs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And they got the highest rent in the whole city. So, it's fraud everywhere. I'm not saying that that's what they did, but I certainly wasn't gonna be a part of it if that's what was going on.
This, my friend, is why you need a coach, right?
Yeah, that's a fact.
And you need that information, really.
That's a fact.
Because these are things that you don't think about, especially as a new investor. Sometimes you just get ambitious and you want to jump into it, but there's so many more elements that you can ease that can cost you way more in the end.
That's a fact.
So getting that education, connecting with the right people, honestly, that's a decision I had to make, connecting with you on this. So, but that's good.
For sure.
What's your biggest surprise as a new investor?
What was my biggest surprise as a new investor? Really that it was just a lot of people invested, right? I mean, not necessarily just for this building, but when I first got into it, it was like, I realized it was just so much information, and I didn't have enough in my data bank, right? Because my degree is in hospitality, right? So I understand numbers, I know how to put together certain business plans, but I realized when you jump into this side, this is a whole nother, you need a degree in investment almost, or experience in a sense. So I would say my biggest surprise was just how much information that I lacked when it came to this, and how much new information that you need to know and understand when you're jumping into something like this. So all the ones that are boarded up, have these all been accessed? Are these been secured by?
Oh, we secure them every day.
Okay,
we re-secure them every day. Yeah, the boards are there strategically.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And that's something you would
recommend
to anybody that 1, they need to make sure they're securing the property every time they leave. Now, some people get alarmed, so I guess in this case you wouldn't want to get anything because of there's no power, so you have to be subjective on what you use to secure it in a sense. So what would be the best? I guess is it depending on what the property looks like?
Yeah, so that's a good point, right? You gotta be conscious of number one, where you at, what's the goal, what are you protecting, right, and then how you protect it.
Okay.
So when you look at this, if you wanted to do an alarm system, you got to put 16, right? Everything is to scale.
Right.
So we got the wrought iron fence. It's got some safety mechanisms on it.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, it's not even necessarily prevention; it's deterrent. If it becomes that much of a deterrent, then the prevention would naturally happen, because at some point somebody gonna see something.
Yeah.
Right. So it's understanding that, but then like we got a 40-unit building with one door entrance, then we're gonna put an alarm on the building because it's that one door entrance.
Gotcha.
So it's just based on application.
Okay.
This is a garden style building.
Now where's the parking for it here? Is there any parking?
You got a lot of good questions there. So again, understanding where you at, who's your client, it's low income housing, right? People more often than not gonna take public transportation. The 4 cars that may exist could park in front or on the side of the building.
And I guess something you should be researching, and looking at
1,000%, because same situation with a market rate tenant, that's a problem if you don't have parking. And people buy buildings and forget that all day, every day.
Yeah.
And they like, man, where can I? You can't.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's too late.
Yeah. So with the 1-1s, you think you're typically looking at maybe elderly, like in that on the Section 8, because 1-1s, when I think of that, I mean, you're not necessarily thinking of somebody with kids or for it being a 1-1, although I know some Section 8 is like 2 heartbeats per room, they will allow it.
Yeah.
With this, what do you expect? What type of tenant as far as demographics?
I would say 50% of them typically are elderly.
Okay.
But then you'll also find single moms with a kid that, you know, like you said, the 2 heartbeats.
Okay.
Or you'll find a couple with no kids.
Okay, yeah.
They only need 1 bedroom.
Well, that's true now.
You know what I'm saying? So.
And a couch for the dog days.
There you go. There you go. So the beautiful part is for me, again, like I manage the managers. So I really just look at what's my desire in terms of outcome and then reverse engineer that process with them. You know, so like for instance, I understand that my property management company is phenomenal at fulfillment, taking care of tenants, very organized, a lot of transparency. I can see all the puts and takes of the month in terms of what's going on with the money. They got very good processes as it pertains to that. What they're not very good at is bridge building, right? Creating new relationships, business to business stuff.
Yeah.
So I have other people on the outside that are building these bridges and pulling me in for me to cultivate those relationships and then have my property management company take care of the back office. So for instance, the guy I talked to earlier today that said he could fill like 40 units. I'm gonna have a meeting with him tomorrow. I'm gonna find out exactly what he needs from us. Okay. When I meet with the property management company on Friday, I'm gonna get him all that information, tell them to send him everything that he needs, and then they can handle, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just like flipping a house, it's just like doing a duplex. Nobody cares more than you.
Right.
Now, the thing about cash flow that I like when you got a property management company is at least they care because they get a percentage of what you earn.
For sure.
But they get a percentage of what you earn. Just like a realtor cares, so they get a percentage of what you earn, but you still care more than anybody in the deal.
Right.
So same is true. So for people that just sit back flat-footed and be like, I've been having a problem getting, you know, tenants or this and that, some of it could be directly impacted by the property management company, but it's the 80-20 rule. It's always going to be 80% of something that you're going to love, and it's going to be 20. I mean, it's relationships, it's whatever, right? So if I look at the 80% and I see the value in the 80%, then I got no problem with bringing in other 20% to make sure that we in our best position to succeed. Because once we get the people in, they stellar at what they do on the back side of that.
Yeah.
As opposed to people that just hop around. Oh, they ain't give me what, you know, you gotta think enterprise.
Right.
80-20.
Yeah. Okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah. Now, do you ever have issues, so let's say, I'm not saying, but I'm just saying in general, like with GCs, maybe the timing.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
How do you handle that? Do you find somebody else? Is it a crew because you're stretching that one GC too thin, or?
Yeah. Well, you would never know that you're stretching them too thin because they'll never tell you that. The good ones will, but most of them, I mean, they're looking for where the deposits so I can start.
Yeah.
So you have to, through time, through reps, through mentorship, you can start to delineate when that's happening so you're not being exposed and taken advantage of. Absolutely, it happens. I mean, I recently in the last year had to stop working with guys that I had a tremendous amount of success with in the single family side, but they didn't have the bandwidth to fully execute on the commercial multifamily side. And so regardless of how I feel about them, still love them to death, you know what I'm saying? But just based on application, I had to go find new people. I always said, like, if God give you the vision, he'll make the provision. And sometimes that means new season require new people.
Yeah.
We can't take everybody with us. You may try,
yeah,
but you got to be able to identify that because the mistakes at this level is just too costly. It'll ruin you.
Yeah. Now, are you having these conversations based on showing them numbers so that they know exactly why you're making that decision, or is it just hard?
It depends on what the issue, right? So if it's quality of work, then it's like, so you got to get some better resource. You got one good guy on your team and the rest of them
Just throwing it in, yeah.
So how do we fix that?
Right.
Because your one guy can't do all the work.
Right.
So that's a different kind of, I don't need to go to no textbook to show him why that's an issue.
Right.
You know, now we having somebody who called every day, every other day with a newfound issue and another change order. I had contractors like that, change order you to death.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, you know, with all due respect, I'm not asking you to do nothing for free, but I'm looking for team players.
Yeah.
And there's enough variance in that bid that you should be able to take care of a couple of those items. You shouldn't be change ordering me every other day.
Okay.
That let me know that you just in my pockets.
Yeah.
You sizing me up.
Yeah.
Instead of being a team player and understanding we about to do volume together, so everybody gonna eat a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
We ran into issues right off the rip. Our second week, we got $100,000 shortfall. Because by the time we got in here, we identified that some of the plumbing behind the walls, although looked to be together, wasn't. So he had a master come in. They like, man, we gotta replumb the whole thing. It wasn't from a lack of proper planning on the front end. We just couldn't see it.
Right.
So then we had to go out and sift and find somebody who could come in and get things done more aligned with where we need them to be.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's not always one size fit all. You know what I mean? But you got to be able to do the work. Now he did his part by calling and had that rough conversation.
Yeah.
I did mine by having another rough conversation with him. You know what I'm saying? And so, and I'm gonna be honest. It was funny because the project manager, she was like, B, I done been around you. Like, God always take care of you. I said, you know what? Matter of fact, let's pray right now. We didn't even get off the call. We prayed right then. 2 days later, he called. He had another guy. It's a 30% of what.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it don't just stop at prayer. It's seeking, it's asking.
Yeah.
It's like we went through that process and quickly. He also man of faith. And so anyway, it's just important who you do business with, who you surround yourself with. Because just as well as that didn't rest well with me, it didn't rest well with him, but he still had to be responsible enough to have the conversation.
Yeah.
You know, the electrical issue, right? Having to go in and change all these panels, that wasn't planned either.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a difference between viable change orders that wasn't a result of negligence, and then there's a difference between somebody that's over here acting like an inspector instead of a contractor and looking for every little nook and cranny where you can say, oh, we ain't covered this in our first bid, we ain't talk about this one. And you get a sense of who they are.
Yeah, okay.
And just about every contractor got a bad habit. I mean,꯫ I'm not a guy blanketed statements, but I'm just saying based on my experience. And the guy that kept hitting me with change orders later came out, he had a promiscuity issue. Like the ladies of the night.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like them gambling tables a little bit too much.
Yeah.
So he was looking for new ways to create new money every day. And right game, just the wrong guy.
Yeah.
So yes, you will constantly go through that. And you know, even when you find good relationships, like any other relationship, spouse or whoever, people will take advantage of eventually.
Yeah.
And not always intentionally, just everybody. People get comfortable in relationships and people take more than they should in some cases. And so you got to make sure that the deposit and the withdrawal ratio is good in the relationship. Yeah. That everybody giving and taking.
Yeah.
Not evenly, but respectfully.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
A lot.
And it's another important part as well. Like Big Will, he owned property. So when he making decisions, he not just thinking of only from a contractor perspective, he also thinking as an owner how it would impact me. He's empathetic to that because he's also a property owner.
Okay.
So you see what I'm saying? So yeah, that's all of these things are the intangibles that through time, repetition, discernment, you gotta cultivate those things over time, because that's the stuff that'll make you or break you. It ain't just the X's and O's. It's about who you're doing business with.
For sure.
And to me, that's far important than doing business nowadays. It's who I'm doing business with.
That's good.